Hey, it's Patrick here from SMAI. Today we're going to be building the Vanta series lateral pull down and low row cable system. Let's get stuck into it. Okay, so we've laid out all of the components from the package out on the floor. And the first step you want to do is just make sure you've got all of the components, cross-check it against your assembly manual. You should have these parts. So we've got the uprights, 2 guide rails, weight plates, trolley, lower beam, upper beam, 2 lower pulley houses, 2 upper pulley houses, and the pulleys that match the system. 1 cable and 4 guards, 1 foot plate and 1 seat. In addition to all of these components, you'll also receive a blister pack which contains all of the nuts, bolts and washers that you'll need to assemble the components, as well as some of these 25mm bolts for attaching to your rack. So you're going to want a couple of tools to help you get the job done. You'll want to have a set of spanners, a pair of adjustable wrenches and a set of Allen keys. We're going to use some power tools as well to make the job a little bit easier. Step 1 is getting the bottom beam. So we'll grab this part. You can tell it's the bottom because it's got a part sticking up and a part sticking down. So we'll head over to the rack and start getting that into position. Before we install the bottom beam, there's a few things to check to make sure you get the correct alignment. The first thing is to make sure it's the right way up. So you want these brackets facing upwards. The other is to check the arrow at the front. That needs to be pointing outwards away from the rack. Now when it comes to attaching to your rack, the system is a modular system which allows you to attach to the front of your rack or the side. Depending on what you choose, you need to use a different bolt position on this bracket. On the front, we're going to use position 2. Now to check that you're in the right position, you want to make sure that you've got a 30mm clearance between your floor and the bottom of the bracket here. That'll let you know that you're using the right holes. Now on the back, I've got another washer, a lock washer and a nut, and we're just going to hand tighten for now. So a key tip for the whole install is just hand tighten everything to start with. Once we're finished, we're going to come through and tighten everything with tools. Now when it comes to the side, we're going to use the top position. Again, you'll know you're in the right position if you have a 30mm clearance between your floor and the bottom of the bracket here. Okay, we're ready to install the upright now, and this is where you're going to want a friend to help you stabilize that while you attach it to the beam. And now you're going to want to check the manual and make sure you've got your upright facing in the right direction. It's important for the alignment of the system. So numbers facing outwards is a good way to tell that your upright is in the correct position. So now I'll slide the bolts in. When you're installing the bolts that attach the bottom beam to the upright, it's important that the thread is facing outwards towards the outside of the rack. Okay, the next step is installing the guide rails for the weight plates. So we'll grab these. Caleb, if you grab the other one. Bring them over. And for now, these are just going to rest in these holes in the middle. And just let it lean off to the side. It's okay, it'll stay. The next step will be putting the rubber stoppers over the guide rails and then let them drop down to the bottom. Now that the rubber stoppers are on, the next step is to install the weight plates. So we'll grab those now and start installing them. So to install the weight plate, take the first one over the top, align the 2 guide rods and just let it come down to the bottom and just repeat. We'll feed them over too. When you get to your last plate, it's going to be the one with the guide rail on it. That one needs to sit on the top of the weight stack. The next step is going to be to install the pin selector. So important when we install it is take the ring over the top of the guide here and then just slide the selector into any of the plates. Then we're going to install our first pulley housing. So we're going to take one of our pulleys and put it within the housing. As this is our first pulley install, a really good tip for the whole of the install is just hand tighten your pulleys when you first install them. As part of the cable routing, it's going to require us to loosen and remove some of these pulleys later, so you don't want to over tighten them, it'll just create extra work. To install the housing, we're going to thread our bolt through the base, and then we have 2 nuts. They both need to go on. Second bolt, make sure you refer to the manual and make sure you're getting the correct bolts and nuts. Once you've screwed them on about halfway, then you can screw that into the top of this plate here. And just tighten the bolt at the bottom for now, just to secure that housing, to stop it wobbling around. The next step is installing our first pulley into its housing. Again, referring to your manual and making sure that you are selecting the correct bolt size, washer size, and nut size. The next step is we're going to install the trolley. So what we need to do is feed it over the top of the upright. Grab yourself a step ladder because you're going to need to be up high. So feed it over the top. When it clicks, just pull the pin and that'll allow it to drop down. Slide it down, about halfway will do for now. The next step is we're going to install the top beam. So when you've got the top beam, make sure these brackets are facing downwards. The other thing you want to check is that you've got the correct orientation of this beam when we attach it to the rack. Just check the manual. You'll see in there that the hole that's on the beam here needs to be towards the rear of the rack. You're going to want someone to help you out with this step. I've threaded a few bolts into the rack already, just to make it a bit easier for us. So if you can come through, Caleb, I'll line it up and just push those bolts through for me. Now you want to make sure that the top of the uprights is parallel with your beam. That's how you know that you've threaded the correct holes on the bracket. So we need 2 bolts per side. So we're going to thread the next 2 bolts into the bracket. And again, washer, lock washer, and nut, hand tighten only at this time. So the next step is securing the guide rails. So align them to the holes that are drilled in the top bracket, and you're going to take one of the longer bolts, check your manual to make sure you've got the correct bolt, pass it through the top of the beam, all the way down through the bottom of the beam, and then thread it into the top of the guide rail and start securing it. Do the same on the other side. Again, just hand tightening. We'll use tools to tighten when we're finished. Okay, the next step we're going to do is we're going to install the upper pulley housing, and I've laid out all the components that we need to complete that. So starting off with the 2 sides to the housing, we've got the 3 pulleys here and the bolts that go with the pulleys. I've got 2 small pulleys and 1 large pulley. I've got 1 large bolt and 2 smaller for the housing. And then we've got the 3 guide bolts as well. These are going to help the cables stay within the system. We're going to install the pulley housing first, and you're going to want your friend on hand to help you do this part. So you need this hole to line up there. So we want to align the 2 side plates at the top here. There's a large hole, and the bolt is going to pass through the plates, through the upright and back to the other side. Now just hand tighten that bolt to secure the housing. Next, I'm going to put through the 2 smaller long bolts through the holes that are drilled in the plates. So just feed them through one side, all the way through to the other. Pop a washer on and a nut. So the next step is we're going to install the 3 pulleys into the housing. I'm going to start with the larger pulley. You can tell where the large pulley goes in because of this raise in the housing. So we slide the pulley in, feed the bolt through, and then secure from the other side with the nuts, and just hand tighten for now. And now moving on to the smaller pulleys. First one in the middle position. I was having a good chat with Nello this morning about coffee, actually. Okay, the next step is we need to install the 3 guide bolts that sit at the top of each pulley. And so each bolt has a barrel. We need to pull that off and put that in between the housing and pass the bolt through like that. Then you can secure it with your nut. Okay, that's the top housing complete, and now we're going to move on to the next step. So the next step is we're going to install the lower pulley housing. So the parts that we're going to need for that are the housing plates, the 2 pulleys, and the bolts that go with them, bolts to secure, and the guide bolts. So an important note is when you go to install the pulley housing, is you need to check the arrow direction here, which matches your lower beam. This will make sure that you install the housing in the correct orientation for the system. So look out for that arrow, and when you install it, make sure it matches up here. Now we've got our correct alignment of the plate. We're going to put the bolts through. Now we'll move around to the other side to install the pulleys. Now this is where if you've got a friend that can help you, an extra pair of hands will be really helpful here. To make it a bit easier, I'm going to pass the pulley bolt through the housing so that I can now sit the pulley onto the bolt, and I'll do that with the other one as well. Now the next thing is we're going to do the same with the guide bolt. So pass the guide bolt through and hang the barrel on there as well. Do the same for the rear. Okay, so now we've prepared that to install the other side of the pulley housing. So now we need to, again, ensure we've got our arrow alignment, and then we need to start aligning all of the bolts and pulleys. So this is where you're going to want to have your friend on the other side that can help you align everything. So with your friend pushing from the other side, line up the plate with all of the bolts and feed them through. Options that we provided. Better than Now we've got the bottom pulley housing assembled. Okay, the next step is starting to route the cabling. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take the rubber stopper and the clamp off the end of the cable so that we can route it. So to get the rubber stopper off, grab a screwdriver or an Allen key and just hook it through here, grab the stopper and just yank it nice and hard, pop it off. If it's a bit sticky, get a bit of WD-40 on there, that'll help it come off. Once the rubber stopper is off, we just want to undo the clamp at the end, so you'll need an Allen key. There is 3 Allen keys, so just unscrew each one. Now, as we loosen off these Allen keys, we should be able to slide the clamp off the end of the cable. Okay, the next step is we're going to start routing the cable, and at this point it's really important to follow the exact instructions in the assembly manual. So step 1 of routing the cable is taking the eyelet end and attaching it to the trolley here. Now there's multiple positions here, just choose the second position for now, thread the bolt through and put the nut on. Now the multiple positions are to help us adjust the cable tension. We'll do that at the end of the install. Okay, so we've finished routing the cable, and now we need to put the rubber stopper and the clamp back on the end of the cable. Now, a little tip to make this a lot easier on yourself, if you do take off this top pulley, that's going to give me a lot more free play in the cable to get this on. So we'll do that now, then we'll put the pulley back in. Now we've got that pulley out. It's a bit easier for me to get the stopper on. And now the clamp. So remember, the clamp has 3 screws. So push the cable in. Make sure it threads all the way through so that your last Allen key is going to clamp down on the end of that cable. Make sure your clamp is really nice and secure. So the little nuts need to be flush with the clamp. And now just push the rubber stopper back over the clamp all the way down. Now we're going to put the pulley back in, lay the cable into the housing. Just push your pulley into there and thread your bolt through. And secure it with the washer and the nut. Okay, so there we have it. We've fully routed the cable system, and that is the end of that step. Now with the cable in place, we want to check the cable tension. So you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of excess cable when the system is in the neutral position. So if you've got a lot of sag or there's a lot of give before you start pulling any of the weight, you want to adjust the cable tension. And there's a few different ways we can do that. Okay, the first place we can adjust the tension is by adjusting the bolt position here on the back of the trolley. You can move the bolt position up or down, which is either going to lengthen or shorten the cable run. Now, if you really want to fine tune the cable tension, we've got some adjustment here on the cable pulley. Now, to do an adjustment here, we need to rotate this bolt either up or down, depending if you need to lengthen or shorten the cable. Now, once you've rotated it, you'll notice that the cable is twisting. So if you're going to make an adjustment, you'll need to take the pulley out, adjust. Once you've got the right height, put your pulley back in and secure. Once you've got your height set, lock it into place with the nut here, and that'll set your new height and new tension. Okay, the next step is to install the guard plates on the outside of the rack. Each plate has 2 bolts, so just move them into position. They're going to attach to these brackets at the top and the bottom. Just put in position. Put the bolt in and just screw that in. Then move to the bottom and do the same. And then we just repeat the steps for the remaining 3 guard plates. To complete the install, we need to go through and tighten all of those nuts and bolts that we assembled earlier. Really important to remember, when you're tightening the bolts and nuts for the pulley housings, is don't over tighten them. If they're too tight, the pulley system won't run smoothly. Now that you're fully assembled and everything's tightened, you're good to go. So you can enjoy your SMAI lateral pull down and low row cable system.